Kia ora folks, today we are having a home day for the first time in quite some time. Unfortunately, homeschooling is a bit of a misnomer. Usually with our homeschooling we're actually in town quite often with the kids' activities and seeing their friends, and so actually getting a home day is quite rare. So today we are actually at home and we have a whole lot of plans to get through, part of which is planning for a bonfire we're having at our new section with some of our homeschooling friends for Matariki, which is the Māori New Year, which happens on Friday, which is probably will have happened by the time you see this, because I plan on adding some photos and videos from there as long as my camera plays the game there. It's been a cold and frosty start to the morning, and I know we don't get nearly as cold as a lot of places do, but for us it's really cold. Micaiah and I are going to brave the cold and try and dig out our oca or New Zealand yams. They should be ready. The tops are starting to die off and I want to get them out of the ground before they start going green, being exposed to the light. My dad's also coming to help us cut the tops off a few barrels so we can use those for the bonfires. And I have great plans to get my tomatoes and my peppers sown in the tunnel house on top of my heated table. So let's go and see how many of these oca we can get up before Dad arrives to help me. We're over in our survival garden area where the oca are growing and they've finally started to frost kill. And while we're standing here, I'm pretty sure I can hear the digger working over at our new place. And at the other end of this row, we've got the marshua, which is a cousin of a nasturtium, and the roots look really similar to an oca. They taste nothing like it, but I'm going to harvest all of those to grow them in my food forest, and I've got a few people interested in buying them as well. But first, we need to get the tops off of these plants and lift this weed mat to give us easy access. The amazing thing with these oca is even the tiniest little piece of yam left in the ground will regrow into an entire new plant. So I've been really careful to make sure I plant these somewhere that aren't in my main garden bed, where they can just keep regrowing. So the marshua and the yams actually look quite different. This is all marshua and they're kind of long and stringy, and this, can you see that? That is a marshua tuber, whereas the oca or yams tend to be a lot more round. They don't have the tapering point on the end the same. The yams, we've got yellow and pink growing. There's a pink one and there's a yellow one, so they're both oca, and this one is marshua, and some of them are a bit pinker than others as well. I can't reach. Help! Can you bring the white bucket a bit closer? Thanks. What were you doing? You hammering the sharp bits?
Yeah.
Not a bad haul from one long bed of shed crops. Now I'm just going to sort through them and work out which ones we're going to eat, which ones we're going to keep for seed, and which ones we're going to feed to animals. I know for some people that sowing tomatoes at this time of year is a little bit ridiculous and a little bit too early, but I have found over the years that if I sow around winter solstice, which for us of course is the middle of June, that I can get my first lot of tomatoes out of the garden around Christmas time. And I have tried sowing them later and it hasn't really helped. People have said, oh, if you sow them later you'll get better plants and they'll grow just as fast and you can get them just as early, but actually I haven't found that to be the case for me. So this year I'm going to be super organised and get them in the ground as soon as possible. Which of course means that we need to get our new tunnel house built as well. So I'm going to get them started at least. I have got a heated propagation table, which is great for getting seeds started, and I've got a few cuttings and things on there at the moment that I'm wanting to propagate, so I figure if I'm running the table I may as well have it filled up with stuff that I need to get germinating as well. And I found a few native seeds on some of our native trees, and so I have put those in as well, and some of them are actually starting to grow, which is exciting. Nothing quite like some free trees. Look at my nails. They were so dirty in a video that I did recently, and someone had the gall to complain about how gross my nails were. I'm like, bro, I grow a garden. I'm going to have dirt behind my nails. I don't care. So in here I've got a whole lot of onions that I'm going to get started so they're a good size before we get round to planting them. This is all relying on me getting some soil ready at the new place to get some in the ground, and I'm going to grow quite a few more than I usually do because I'm actually planning on planting up the garden here as well. We are hoping obviously that it will sell, but I would love to pass on a functioning garden that's already got crops in it ready to go for whatever family ends up here. I just stood in a puddle of water. So I've got 1 packet of yellow sweet Spanish and 3 Italian longkeeper because I find they actually do slightly better for me, but it's always good to hedge your bets, right? And so I've got some of both, and I just dump an entire packet onto a 6-cell tray, and then I'll split them up later when they're big. Someone mentioned to me recently that they follow particular channels on YouTube because they like their stories and they relate to the people, and I thought about it some more and I was like, you know what, I'm the same. The reason I follow particular channels is because I relate with them, and their story, not even any of them are necessarily the same story I have because we don't share stories, everyone has their own story. But I think knowing someone's story helps you identify with them and empathize with them some more. So I thought, while I'm doing this, I would talk to you about a few things. I have I haven't actually counted them, 25, 30 odd sayings that kind of form the framework of my ideals, my values, I guess. And they're things that I say often and I live by them. And so far, so good. So far they've done me well. And probably the one that I say the most is, it is what it is, what now? And I say it to the kids too. And sometimes they just get mad at me. Whoa, onion seeds. Sometimes they just get mad at me because what it's really saying is actually there's not much you can do to change the current circumstance. It already exists. Your choice is what are you going to do about it. And for me, that has got me out of a lot of things. It changes your mindset, the way you think about stuff. And it's been a really helpful thing to take on board. There's some stuff you just can't control, and there are some things that you can. So it is what it is, but what are you going to do about it now? And it goes along with the idea of every little bit counts. What can I do today to get me closer to my goal? And I think in combination they're two very powerful statements and two very powerful ideas, and they help me to remember that I don't have to fix everything right now, but also there is something I can do about it, and I can't change the circumstances that happen to me, but I can change how I respond to them. And I think once you start doing something, anything, even if it's just a tiny little bit towards your goal, you feel more motivated to actually do more. For example, I need to sow these tomato seeds, and I have been putting it off for about a week. But I was like, no, I need to just, what can I do right now that's going to progress me towards my goal? My goal is to grow as much food as we can for the family. So today I had the afternoon free, we're at home. What can I do today to get me closer to that goal? And honestly, all it took was going, right, I'm going to plant these tomato seeds, and now I have tomatoes and peppers and onions and some more plants, some more trees that I want to get planted. All it takes is to just go, right, what am I going to do now? What can I do, this one thing, to get me towards my goal? And some days all that is making sure the kids are fed and dressed and that my house is functional. And other days we get huge projects done in what seems like a really small amount of time. Now previously with tomatoes, I have always used either these 6-cell ones or a big tray. I've got these trays that don't have holes in the bottom that I use for bottom watering my plants. So I often, all my tomatoes will start in these and I'll stack them in there. But this year I'm going to try what Jess from Roots and Refuge Farm does and try and put them all in bigger cups, like a whole lot of them in a bigger container, and then I can prick them out and picking the best ones, because I'm growing a huge variety of tomatoes, because when we've done our plan for our new tunnel house, me and Chloe have realised we need about 200 tomato plants. So I'm going to use up all of my old seed, as well as plenty of my favourite ones that I use every year. This may take an extra step because I have to prick them out, but I am using a lot of older seeds and I'm not convinced all of them will be as fresh as they used to be. So I'm going to plant them one little container per type, and then whatever grows I'll be able to prick out. And whatever doesn't grow, I'm not wasting all my time and space fluffing around watering plants that are never going to grow. So case in point, I've got this one called Tangella, which is from 2018, and hopefully it will grow. I have seen, I think it was the MI Gardener channel, grew some tomatoes that were like 80 or 90 years old that had been stored in a window box picture frame, and he managed to get them to grow. So it's not that older seeds won't grow, it's just that sometimes their fertility drops a bit. So instead of having 100% germination rate, you might have even like 50 or 60%. And the other thing I've learned over the years is never sow every single one of your variety, just in case. If something goes wrong, you've got no way of coming back. So I always put like a little pinch back in the packet to try again if something goes wrong with this. I was going to say hatch. It's not a hatch, it's a germination. And I guess that kind of leads into one of the other things that I consider really important. One of the other sayings, I guess, that I live by, and I think it's actually a permaculture concept, that one is none and two is one. And it's definitely the case. We always make sure we have extra roosters for exactly that reason, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, all it takes is a rooster to die and then you've got no roosters. So we definitely take that approach with them, less so with our bigger animals, but definitely with them. And I definitely do it with plants as well. Turns out 200 tomatoes is a lot of tomatoes. I'm not entirely sure how many of each of these varieties to do. I guess I just do them and see. Some of them are from the same variety from two different places, so I'm actually labeling them separately because I want to just check and make sure that what we've got is same. And some of them I can't remember the actual names of, but this one is just called Tomatoes Outside, which I grew a whole lot of varieties of tomatoes outside this season, and these are being saved from the tomatoes that actually survived the summer and produce fruit that ripened. So I'm hoping to eventually have something that will grow outside that doesn't need the tunnel house. I'm not going to make this a whole lecture on all the sayings that I use, but one of the other ones that has really changed the way we live our lives is not saying I can't and not assuming I can't, but trying to think, how can I? How can I achieve this? What do I need to do to make this happen? And all of a sudden, when you stop saying I can't and start saying how can I, your brain goes to a lot more creative places and you start thinking of more out of the box ideas. And for us, originally it was, I can't grow food here, I don't have a garden. And so how can I? I started with some containers, and I couldn't afford to get a lot of pots, and also I am terrible at watering containers. So I went and got big grey tote bins because they didn't need water nearly as often. And so my first garden was in those. And then later it was, we can't afford to buy food. And the answer was, how can we afford to buy food? And what ended up happening was we grew a garden, and we grew a big garden. And that's when I started learning properly how to garden. So my encouragement is, if that's you and you feel like you can't do whatever it is you're wanting to do, start thinking out of the box and start thinking of some creative ideas of maybe how you can make that happen. Who is it you need to talk to? What is it you need to learn, and what resources can you use? Or maybe even what alternative resources can you use that you need? So one of these plants that I'm growing is called Sweet Bite, which I believe is also known as Sweet 100, and it's an F1. And I know you're not meant to keep seeds from hybrid seeds, but the reality is it will still grow probably a sweet little cherry tomato. So I'm going to grow it anyway because it is one of my favorites, but I'm not going to be buying new ones every year. And one of these packets of seeds, actually 2 of them, are from my dear neighbour Sue. Thank you, Sue. And this one's Mazzano, I think you say it. I can't remember what that one says. Oh, San Mazzano. It was a really nice paste tomato, so I'm going to give it a bash as well. So I guess if I've got 10 varieties and I have 20 of each plant, that works out to 200, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, well, we'll see how we go. I didn't count the varieties. But looking at the next packet, I think I've got more than 10. I've got a few different types of Roma tomatoes because I'm trying to find a paste tomato that grows really well here. And the ones I grew last year, I wasn't very impressed with. I think they were a type of Roma tomato too, but they just didn't get very big and they really struggled, but that may have been neglect. I did have a little grey water system set up for our laundry water. But what I didn't realise was that despite having quite a decent filter on it, it was still clogging up the drip tape. And I realised that a whole lot of my tomatoes were dying. And on top of that, all of the ones that were grown in the cheap potting mix really struggled. And unfortunately, they were most of my Roma tomatoes. So I think it was when I worked that out and I managed to get them feeding, that was the problem with it, was old potting mix and I don't think it had enough fertilizer left in it. It was quite woody potting mix like this stuff is, unfortunately, and so they start sucking the nutrients out, and so the plants were struggling. So once I started fixing that, they did do better, but they never completely recovered. And that's something I really want to do with my new garden, is to make the habit of, hopefully daily, if not every other day, making my way round the garden so that I can notice and pick up on those things. Because at the moment I'm really bad at it, and the garden's sort of out of sight and out of mind. It's off to the side a wee bit, and unless I'm getting food out of it for dinner, I don't tend to just wander around it. And to be honest, I don't have time. But I'm hoping at the new place I'll be able to spend the time to be able to do that. And another thing I have learnt over the years is to expect abundance, to expect things to go well. God is not a stingy human. He's not out for making money. Nature is full of abundance, full of life, and we need to learn to expect it and to embrace it and to do what we can to let abundance flourish for us. Sometimes abundance actually involves a bit of hard work, and we have to be prepared to do that as well. I think it's like when you expect something, you see it everywhere. You know, like when you buy a new car and suddenly everybody has the same car, or when you get pregnant or you wish you were pregnant and everyone around you seems to be pregnant when you walk along the street. It's kind of like that. When you expect to see abundance, you start seeing it everywhere, and it becomes that positive feedback loop where you expect abundance and you see abundance and you expect more abundance, and it becomes a really healthy state of mind. Now it's time for the peppers, and I was going to do the same thing, but I've run out of little pots, and to be honest, I'm so lazy I'm not going to go around and find some more. I'm just going to do it the cheats way and tip it all into one of these trays. I figure if I'm going to have to be pricking them all out anyway, they may as well just be in rows in one of these. And because they're on my heated propagation table, I'm misting them pretty much every day. So I don't think they're going to have troubles and dry out. Peppers is something we don't grow a great deal of here because it's a bit cold and they can't grow outside without protection usually. But with this big tunnel house, I'm going to give it a go. I often will grow some jalapenos, and I have some years grown some cayennes really well. I pretty much never managed to make capsicums grow at all. Bell peppers, they pretty much just don't fruit. Or the plants die, or I don't know what happens with them, but they don't do well. But I'm going to give it a bash again this year. You know, God loves a trier. I'm going to keep going. And hopefully one day I'll have some good success. I suspect what I need to do is actually feed them a bit better. Maybe set up some sort of, fertilizing system. How do you guys grow your peppers? How do you get fruit from your peppers? Is it just a heat issue? I don't know. If you are really good at growing peppers, can you let me know your secret tricks down below? Because I would love to be able to grow my own peppers, especially capsicums. I love them. This one's called Orange Sun, which I believe is a capsicum, also known as a bell pepper. And I'm going to give it a go. Last year my plant that was this one just died, and I'm not sure why. And this one is called Rocoto, and it's a little bit different to a normal pepper. For one thing, its seeds are black, and for another thing, apparently it's quite cold tolerant, and hypothetically it could be a perennial once established. Do you know my experience of them so far? They barely grew, and then they died in the frost. But again, I'm going to try again. Maybe this year will be my chance. Don't you hate it when you write out all your labels and then one of them disappears? I'm not sure it's gone. While I was out in the garden, grabbed a couple of leeks and a few carrots. And I'm off to get some rosemary, and that will be dinner. Tonight's one of those nights that everything we're having for dinner has been grown on the farm, which is always an exciting night. We've got leeks, yams, pumpkin, rosemary, bacon, lamb, and I'm sure I'll throw some beans in there as well. And if you want to know more about growing some of those tubers that I harvested this morning, check out this video here. In fact, I think I'll make it a playlist. Check out this playlist on growing these tubers. There's a few interesting ones there. I don't love all of them, but I quite enjoy the New Zealand yam or the ocker. The ocker are my favourite. I don't like pumpkin or parsnip or kumara, also known as sweet potato, but I really love ocker. It's my favourite. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed having a snapshot of what we do here and what we've been up to today. I'm hoping to grab some pictures and some images of our Matariki celebration tomorrow, so if I have some of those, I'll add them in after this. And I will see you in the next one.